So, we are going to discuss the topic of insurance claims. I'm going to start out with just talking about a claim that we just went through that involved a neighbor. This is a condominium complex, and our tenant lives on the second floor. The owner directly above that tenant, who lives on the third floor, had a washer malfunction that flooded and then seeped down into our tenant's uh, unit. Well, the it's an interesting situation because this does not have anything to do. This is not an owner obligation or fault. I guess the only obligation would be habitability, no matter what, for our tenant. So this is something we definitely have to get involved with and get the issue mitigated first and foremost, no matter what. After 72 hours of anything being wet, it goes into a microbial type of a mold that is dangerous, and then that is going to affect the habitability of the tenant. They cannot be breathing in those mold spores. So, time is of the essence on any of these types of issues, but when it comes to water, the faster we can get the situation mitigated, the better. So it started out where the tenant put in a maintenance request and then also called or texted, I should say, me directly and said, hey, we had a flood. So, of course, anytime you see flood, they say that there's flood, blood, or something else. Uh, that's something we have to take care of just immediately. Almost kind of stop whatever else you're doing and then let's try to get it figured out. So I immediately, um, texted them and just said, hey, has the water been stopped? What's the situation? Even though our maintenance department is on it, I don't trust anybody to be on the issue better and faster than me. So the tenant did describe the situation as it was the fault of the neighbor. They did talk to the neighbor. The neighbor had shut off the water to the situation, so that was good. If this would have been another water main shutoff issue, then we would have had to locate that water main shutoff valve either through the homeowner association, in this case with the condo, or if it's something that they could turn off in their own unit. So, fortunately, this was an isolated incident to an appliance. The appliance got turned off, and now we are in a situation where the tenant is everything's wet. We don't know exactly all of the damage done at this point, but it needs to be mitigated right away. Fortunately, the owner above in the unit on the third floor had a mitigation company, or I should say restoration company, because that's who we would call to get out there to the unit. Um, that restoration company that was contracted by the owner on the third floor checked in and talked to the tenant on the second floor. That restoration guy also called me. The tenant did give him my number and said, hey, do you want me to start this cleanup? Well, I said absolutely. Personally, I don't care at that point who is working on our property. If they're not in our system, that's fine. Of course, we're never going to pay anybody until we get the W 9 from them. However, they can absolutely start the work. So the restoration guy gave me he started the work, and what they're going to do in a case like that is they're going to pull the pad from the carpet if it's wet, and they're going to just discard it. They can't save the pad at that point. And then they're going to start the cleanup of the water that's on there. And what that's going to, they're going to extract as much as possible. And then they're going to put down blowers, humidifiers, or I'm sorry, dehumidifiers, and anything else they need at that point to just dry everything out. They will also rip out any drywall that may have already been saturated with water. It's useless. All that's going to do at that point is create more problems later, and more costs if mold does attach to it. So they just start ripping out and almost demoing this situation. So there was so before they can really start doing a lot of work and leaving all of the equipment behind, if especially in this case we never worked with this particular company before, they want to make sure they're going to get paid. So he sent over an estimate, and we're hoping at this point to get that estimate signed by the owner. The maintenance department is not going to sign authorization on something like this. It was like $5,000 for the cleanup. Now that does not even include what it's going to cost to get everything back in order again, once everything's dry. So they want to make sure they're getting paid. I don't want this to go on for too long. I don't want to sit here and hem-haw around. I don't, because if I let that vendor leave the property, well then, who knows when they're, excuse me, who knows, who knows when they're going to get back to the property. So, excuse me. So we're kind of working with a delicate situation. So what I try to do is get contact the owner, let them know what happened, and get their approval as fast as possible. Now, if you can't get a hold of the owner, we have a clause in the owner agreement saying that we can make decisions even if it is over $300 or the $500 mark, which we always try to get authorization first from the owner before ever spending anything over $300. I really like to keep them included if we can, but if it's a habitability issue, we want to get this done right away. So we were able to get a hold of the owner in this case, and they were able to sign. If I couldn't get a hold of them, I would have went ahead and just signed. It's the last thing I want to do, though, is take on any type of liability for paying a bill. But in this situation, I know insurance is going to cover this. Insurance is going to cover any of this, whether it was the upstairs insurance, that person's insurance. If it was the owner's fault in our unit, they've got insurance that would cover something like this. And we also have renter's insurance that if it was our tenant, their insurance is going to cover any of this issue. That's why it's so important for us to keep aware that that we do have insurance from all parties involved when we're doing this. So So basically, that's the step one of dealing with an insurance type of a situation. Um, I'm going to make a couple of different videos here on this topic, and that's just step one of what we do and how we deal with floods and insurance. Thank you very much for listening. I hope this was helpful.